Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of CFL Trade. I'm your host. My name is Robert Dalton, co-host of the Rouge Radio podcast. And today is just, it's not going to be your normal trade tree video. We're going to be doing a story of a player that has a trade tree involved. Generally, trade trees have stories surrounding it. This is a story that has a trade tree involved in it. Not necessarily that has relevance, but it's still kind of cool to surround the story. Now, for this kind of situation, it has to deal with nostalgia. Everybody loves nostalgia. If you're my age, you are really into nostalgia. For everything from TV, music, movies. Anybody who knows me knows that I am huge on nostalgia. Generally anything from the 80s and early 90s. Movies. You love the current movies that are out right now, but give me Rain Man, give me Terminator, any day of the week. That's just what I love. Music, just anything from the 80s. I love it. The same could be said about sports. A lot of people will look at today's current crop of field goal kickers and you'll ask, hey, who's the best field goal kicker in the league today? Well, he retired a couple of years ago, but a lot of people will point to Justin Medlock. A lot of people point to Shaun White, Brett Lawler, Sergio Castillo. The names go on and on, but for me, I like to go back to the 80s because that's when I first started to watch the CFL. Guys like Terry Baker, guys like Louis Pisaglia, guys like Trevor Kenner. So when you ask me who's the best field goal kicker of all time, you have to go nostalgia for me. It's Robo Kicker, Dave Ridgeway.
Down by 15 for Darnold. He's going to keep it. He's gonna...
Kicker by the name of David Ridgeway. I don't know his name. Forget I mentioned it. Was taken in the third round of the CFL's draft in 1982 by the Montreal Alouettes. Did he play for them? No, he didn't. He tried out, he was cut, they had some plans, and then he went westward. Did he go with Toronto? Well, let's not go through all that because Montreal was as furthest east as he can go. Of course he's going to go west if he wants to play. He landed in the province of Manitoba. Yes, a lot of people don't know this, that he was picked up by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, the Bombers won the Grey Cup in 84, and again in 88, and again in 1990, so we can't play the what-if game as to whether or not Winnipeg would have won more Grey Cups with David Ridgeway as opposed to Trevor Kenner. But one of the most prolific kickers in not only CFL history, but Saskatchewan Roughriders history, to know that one of their most iconic kickers could have been Donning Blue and Gold is kind of a cool thing to know. Prior to the 83 season, Dave Ridgeway was cut by Winnipeg, signed on with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and the rest, as you know, is history. Plenty of honors, CFL All-Stars, Divisional All-Stars, points leaders at the regular season, and of course, record-breaking field goals. That is until the Saskatchewan Roughriders said adios to Mr. Ridgeway and traded him to Edmonton. The initial trade was the Saskatchewan Roughriders sending a third-round pick in 1987 and Dave Ridgeway in exchange for offensive lineman Brian Lillibrand. Now, a lot of people are thinking, hey, wait, this is a trade tree starting early because Lillibrand was actually traded to BC. And you'd be correct. However, Lillibrand was actually a member of the Saskatchewan Roughriders when Dave Ridgeway's career started, and he was traded to BC 4 years before this. So He was traded, just not part of this trade tree. So let's just forget about it. Okay. Now, there's a lot of you saying, hey, I don't remember Dave Ridgeway actually being a member of the Edmonton Football Club, and that's because he was traded the moment he got off the plane. Dave Ridgeway, as well as a first-round pick in 1987, and Brad Taylor were sent to the Montreal Alouettes in exchange for Trevor Dalts. Now, we can probably go through the stats for Dalts and whatnot. He was part of the 87 team that won the Grey Cup over the Toronto Argonauts, but this is not necessarily about this particular version of this trade tree, because for the Montreal Alouette side of things, it ends. Like, literally, it ends. A lot of you are thinking, hey, wait a minute, I still don't get. Dave Ridgeway was traded twice, and he never played for those teams. Now, there's a lot of you who are saying, hey, wait a minute, Montreal in 1987? I can't find them there. And you'd be correct on both counts, because the Montreal Alouettes folded prior to the 87 season. Now, I'm just getting into football. I'm just getting into the CFL side of things after following NHL. And it's 7-year-old me listening to the radio, and the announcer, and I just remember it, verbatim says, the Montreal Alouettes were flushed down the toilet. And then there's 7-year-old me. Heck, 42-year-old me would actually find amusement out of this, is that seeing 42 grown-ass men jumping in the porta potty, flushing themselves down the commode. It's kind of humorous. No, it's not. All right, let's just continue. The Montreal Alouettes folded. Dave Ridgeway is a part of the dispersal draft, and guess who picks him up? The Saskatchewan Roughriders. Now, we can talk about the mess of the Montreal Alouettes, or we could just continue talking the career of Dave Ridgeway. Because 2 years after this happened.
35-yard attempt for David Ridgeway. It's up. It's good.
That's right. The Saskatchewan Roughriders beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats for their second Grey Cup title in franchise history. One of the most amazing things about this is the guy who also was on that roster, Brian Illiburn, they traded for 2 years prior. So if you look at it, the Saskatchewan Roughriders traded a third-round pick for Brian Illiburn, and they got a Grey Cup out of it. Not bad. You could say that they're lucky. That's some cool magic beans that Saskatchewan management managed to screw up. It's just cool to know. After the 89 Grey Cup title, Saskatchewan enjoyed some moderate success. Missing the playoffs here, making the playoffs here. But when they did make the playoffs, they were just one and done pretty quickly. So after the 1995 season, Saskatchewan did the unthinkable for a second time. They traded Dave Ridgeway. The deal was Dave Ridgeway with Dan Payne, Anthony Drawhorn, David Pitcher, and quarterback Matthew Quibger to the Montreal Alouettes in exchange for Bruce Boyko, John James, and Willie Latta. Now, this is in the middle of the video, but this is where the trade tree kind of technically starts. And it's funny how it starts after a career ends. In 1995, Dave Ridgeway retires from the CFL. So if you're following suit and you're like just trying to count numbers and what have you, that's not two, not 3 times that Dave Ridgeway was a part of the Montreal Alouettes and not played a single game for them. Another cool fact about this video, kind of amazing. The other players actually managed to either play or never play, but if they did play, it was just one and done before retiring as CFL players. So the Montreal side of things, done. Completely done. Let's go to the Saskatchewan side of things because it's kind of interesting. Willie Latta finishes off his contract after the 1996 season and retires as a CFL player at that time. Bruce Boyko plays a couple games with Saskatchewan, tries to resurrect his career with Winnipeg, but does not get traded. So because he was released, that branch ends there. Let's go to John James, shall we? Because John James, his career didn't really extend too much further, but he is extended in this trade tree. John James, along with linebacker Sheldon Benoit and Nick Ferguson were traded to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in exchange for Jason Mallett, Horace Morris, and K.D. Williams. Like, I completely forgot that K.D. Williams was a Saskatchewan Roughrider. I completely forgot that he was a Saskatchewan Roughrider twice. And this time, he was a monster. Like, Bomber fans were like, hey, wait a minute, the Bombers sucked in 95 and 96. But K.D. Williams was probably the only reason why anybody wanted to watch Bomber games during that time, because he was a monster, and Saskatchewan enjoyed his fruition. People talk about Reggie Slack leading the Riders to the Grey Cup game. K.D. Williams was phenomenal during that playoff run. It's just unfortunate for them. They never got it done at the big game. Now, before the 1998 season, Saskatchewan says, hey, I don't like your attitude, and we're going to ship off another guy that we don't like his attitude to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. K.D. Williams and Lamar McGriggs shipped off to the Hamilton Tiger Cats in exchange for a 1998 second-round pick. Now, in this case, this is kind of cool. There's another cool note to note. Lamar McGriggs, K.D. Williams, now playing part of their second team together. It would actually be the second of 3 times, because 3 years later, the Saskatchewan, or the Lamar McGriggs and K.D. Williams would be members of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It's really cool. A lot of people are saying, hey, I don't care about that stat. Let's show me what they got for that second round pick. The Saskatchewan Roughriders selected Usamain Tunkara. Now, didn't play a lot, was versatile, played a little bit of special teams, but after the 2000 season, eventually called it quits after being released by the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And that's it. The story of Dave Ridgeway, which started in 1982, ends for the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the year 2000. Another cool thing to know. The trade tree started officially in 1996. That ends 4 years after multiple trades. They gave him K.D. Williams, one of the best games in Grey Cup history, and a career that helped Saskatchewan get assets well into the new millennium. Sometimes it pays off to be nostalgic. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you really love this video. And again, if you have any future trade tree suggestions, hit up on Twitter at Rouge Radio, myself at Rouge Dalts. And of course, this video is powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network. And I'm up at CF Pod Network on Twitter.